You're chilling on Berk, and suddenly the ground starts to rumble. You look up, and there it is. A dragon so massive it could block out the sun. But wait, it's not just any dragon, it's an alpha. You know, those boss level dragons that other dragons actually bow down to? Some lead by sheer size, others with hive-mind powers, and just a few because they're respected by their pack. But which of these alphas is the ultimate top dragon? That's what we're getting into today. From the speedy pack leaders to the colossal ice-breathing kings, we're ranking every alpha from the weakest to the most powerful. And trust me, it gets wild. Starting at number 8, there's the Purple Death. Now, this is where we start getting into truly legendary territory. The Purple Death is enormous, so large that it makes you wonder how something that big can even move around without uprooting mountains. This dragon is monstrous, and not just in size. Its power, presence, and the sheer intimidation factor it carries are off the charts. Yet, there's some mystery here. We don't see the Purple Death often, and that mystique only makes it more intriguing. You start to wonder what kind of environment can support a dragon that can weigh millions of pounds. It's a genuine giant, and anyone who spots it would understand in an instant that they've just seen something that can't be matched. Looking at how huge it is, you can't help but feel grateful that such dragons are extremely rare. Moving on to number 7, we have the Fireworm Queen. She's also a species-bound alpha, but she's a bit more unique. Fireworms are these tiny little dragons with a super hot body temperature, so hot that they can melt metal if they gather in large enough numbers. They live in huge swarms, often in volcanic or high-temperature areas, and they have a single queen who's in charge. The queen is genetically recognized by the others because she's bigger, and there's a special substance called royal jelly that she produces. Much like how bees work, this royal jelly can help create future queens. The Fireworm Queen is respected because she's basically the mother figure to her entire swarm. Her presence keeps them organized and loyal. She doesn't forcibly mind control them or anything like that. It's more of a social structure built around biology and tradition. Still not the most massive or powerful in the broader dragon world, but within the Fireworm realm, she's everything. Next up, at number 6, are those Titan Wing versions of species-bound alphas that sometimes show up in Race to the Edge, like the Titan Wing Singetail or the Titan Wing Dramillion. The Singetail is the dragon that can shoot fire from multiple sides of its mouth, making it super unpredictable in battle. The Dramillion can mimic other dragons' fire blasts, which is also really cool. When these dragons reach the Titan Wing stage, they often get bigger, stronger, and might develop some sort of aura or commanding presence that sets them apart from their regular adult counterparts. This can grant them a sort of alpha standing within their own species. However, they're still typically leading their own kind, and it's not the same as controlling a bunch of different dragons. In the show, you might see how a Titan Wing of a certain species gathers a group, but it's usually limited to that species. They might have a stronger intimidation factor, but no universal hive mind. These Titan Wing alphas lead packs by respect or fear, but it's definitely more powerful than a standard adult, because that Titan stage gives them a significant boost. It's an impressive jump, but we're still scaling up toward the truly enormous. Going bigger now with number 5, we have the Submaripper. This dragon is known for being a colossus of the deep. While the Screaming Death burrows underground, the Submaripper essentially lurks beneath the waves. In a world where dragons fill the skies and roam the lands, having one that can dominate the ocean is both awe-inspiring and slightly terrifying. The Submaripper can create massive whirlpools, basically commanding the waters themselves, making passing ships and nearby creatures realize how small they truly are. Its immense strength and ability to stay hidden underwater allows it a tactical advantage that's pretty much unrivaled. Despite its enormous size, it's often been rumored that the Submaripper isn't entirely unreasonable. If it doesn't see you as a threat, it might just ignore you. But if you provoke it or wander too close to something it wants to protect, you're in serious trouble. Moving on to number 4, let's talk about the Forever Wing. If anyone's seen the DreamWorks Dragons series, the Forever Wing is a colossal tree-like dragon that sleeps underground with roots and vines covering its body. It's absolutely massive, arguably even bigger than the Red Death, and it creates a nest that includes a variety of dragons. Unlike the Red Death, it seems less about forcing them to feed it and more about establishing an ecosystem where it slumbers and other dragons live around it in a kind of mutual arrangement. Still, because it's so huge and basically acts as a living fortress, it gains the loyalty, or at least the presence of multiple species. The Forever Wing is a recognized alpha species because once it's awake and in control, it's not just bossing around a few little buddies. It can command or at least influence a diverse group of dragons. It also exerts a sort of environmental dominance. Everything in its territory is under its watch. Next at number 3 comes the Screaming Death from the writers of Berk TV series. This massive white special variant of the Whispering Death has its own cluster of smaller Whispering Death siblings. It's basically bigger, stronger, and has that menacing roar that can send chills down your spine. Does it forcibly mind control them? Not really. They're more like its brood, children of the same mother, so they follow it out of familial bonds rather than telepathic commands. Fans debate whether the Screaming Death should be considered an alpha or just a mutated variant leading its siblings. But since the smaller ones do what the big one says, it at least qualifies as a pack leader, if not an alpha species on the same scale as a Bewilderbeast. It's more like a species-bound scenario, except that the Screaming Death is so enormous, it might confuse people into thinking that it can control everything else. In reality, it can't just walk up to a Natter or a Night Fury and make them obey. It's super strong, but that's more intimidation than universal mind control. Now at number 2, a dragon known as the Green Death, featured in some extended universe materials. Though less prominent in the main storyline, it shares similar traits to the Red Death, just with slightly varied coloring and a few different details. Like the Red Death, it's massive, it sits at the center of a nest, and it exerts control or intimidation over a variety of dragons. Sometimes fans lump the Red Death and the Green Death together, as essentially the same monstrous type. The key takeaway is that these are huge, Titan-level dragons that can enslave or command multiple species, typically through fear. They stand as a classic example of the alpha species concept, although the Red Death is more canonically featured in the first movie, making it more popular. But wait, there are even more unusual cases that people sometimes call alphas, and they don't always fit neatly into a category. For instance, there's the Alpha Shadow Wing, which some fans talk about from Race to the Edge. The smaller Shadow Wings look totally different from the big alpha version, almost like a separate species. It's huge, it's got some design quirks, and it definitely appears to be in charge of the smaller Shadow Wings. But they also seem to have a symbiotic relationship, where the bigger one might offer protection or resources, while the smaller ones do certain tasks. It's not necessarily a hive-mind scenario so much as a specialized hierarchy. Because of that, it's not exactly in the same bracket as the Bewilderbeast or the Red Death, but some fans still call it an alpha, simply because it leads and protects that group. And of course, there's Toothless, the beloved Night Fury, who ends up becoming an alpha in How to Train Your Dragon 2. This is a fun twist on the concept of an alpha, because Toothless is absolutely not a massive Titan dragon. Instead, he earns the loyalty and respect of a whole bunch of different dragons by standing up to Drago's Bewilderbeast. He breaks the hive-mind hold by defeating the giant ice spitter in single combat and letting out a roar that basically signals, "I'm the alpha now." So in that moment, he's recognized by the other dragons, and they choose to follow him. That's quite different from forcibly controlling them. It's more about respect and loyalty. In fact, that's what makes it so heartwarming. Finally, finishing at number 1 with the top of the food chain scenario, the absolute biggest, baddest, and most recognized alpha is typically the Bewilderbeast, as seen in the second movie. It's iconic for being able to physically and mentally dominate entire armies of dragons. That's usually what people think of when they hear Alpha Dragon in the How to Train Your Dragon universe. This type of alpha is so ridiculously powerful that the only way to dethrone it is through a direct challenge, like what Toothless did. So among all the potential alphas, from Speed Stinger pack leaders, to Fireworm Queens, to monstrous Red Deaths, it's really the Bewilderbeast that stands out as the top example of the universal or king dragon. So there you have it, the alphas of the dragon world, from the speedy pack bosses to the titanic rulers like the Bewilderbeast. Whether it's a fire-breathing queen with her tiny lava squad, or a mountain-sized dragon commanding an army with a single roar, every alpha has their own way of leading. But what do you think? Did we miss an alpha you love? Which one's your favorite? Let us know in the comments. See you in the next one. Bye!